The Academy floated in the vacuum of space like a dagger poised at the throat of the galaxy. Its name, the Crucible, was etched in a dozen dead languages across the hull, a warning and a promise. Within its titanium walls, the best warriors from every known species trained under gravity that crushed bones and pressure that shattered egos. Combat was not just taught here, it was carved into the soul. General Tor stood at the observation deck, arms folded behind his back, gaze steady as the Earth transport ship approached. His flesh was stone gray, his frame built from the evolutionary pressures of a world where fire rained from the sky and mercy was a myth. The faint hum of the station's war sirens, always running a low alert, vibrated through his bones. He barely acknowledged it. What concerned him now was the human. Deathworlder, he muttered, the word shaped like a curse. Behind him, Instructor Vrel, a sleek, serpentine tactician from ZYN, coiled tighter. Surely the High Command exaggerates. No species thrives under constant planetary hostility. They don't thrive, Tor replied. They adapt. Moments later, the docking bay hissed open. The woman who emerged looked nothing like the nightmares they'd imagined. No visible weapons, no armor plating, just a slim figure in worn black fatigues, a utility belt slung low on her hips, and a half-smile that broadcast either confidence or suicidal optimism. Her hair was tied back in a no-nonsense tail, and her eyes scanned the bay with the casual curiosity of a tourist. Arishaw, Captain, Terran Defense Corps. She cracked her neck, eyed the gathered instructors, each a legend in their own war-torn corners of the galaxy, and gave a mock salute. So, she said, this is the part where you try to scare me, or are we skipping to the sweat and broken bones? No one answered. General Tvor stepped forward. Silence fell like a blade. You will respect the station, Deathworlder. Era tilted her head, studying him. You're the general? I expected more scars. Or at least an evil laugh. Someone, probably Vrel, hissed. Another instructor clenched a clawed hand. Tvor didn't react. This is not your primitive planet. We do not train for sport. You are here because your commanders think humans offer something new. Era shrugged. Well, if they meant sarcasm and emotional instability, they weren't wrong. There was a long pause as the translator struggled to process sarcasm as anything but hostility. A blinking red indicator lit up on one instructor's HUD, verbal aggression detected. Era smiled wider. The orientation was brief and cold. No tour, no friendly welcomes. Just a biometric scan, a signed waiver of bodily harm, and a notice that the Crucible was not responsible for accidental dismemberment. Era signed with a flourish. By the time she entered the training hall, a silent crowd of cadets had gathered above the mezzanine. Aliens of every shape and gravity level peered down at her, whispering in their own languages. The humans were a curiosity, a myth, a science lesson in biological recklessness. She could feel the weight of their gazes. The first test was balance. A platform 20 meters above a chasm, swaying under fluctuating gravity. The instructor called it the Gauntlet of Grace. Era called it a wobbly death bridge. She crossed it in 27 seconds, record time. On the last meter, she did a somersault and landed with jazz hands. A recorded silence followed, then murmurs. Data feeds blinked in disbelief. The second test was endurance. 10 kilometers in shifting terrain, lava simulation, ice surge, zero-G vacuum fields. Era didn't just finish. She jogged backwards for the last leg, singing something off-key about Eye of the Tiger. By the end, the observing panel had quietly recalibrated the standard metrics. They weren't impressed. They were disturbed. She defies combat logic, one instructor whispered. No, said Tvor, narrowing his eyes. She rewrites it. Era was escorted to the mess hall, where a protein paste in 52 flavors of despair was served. She picked at it, then pulled a vacuum-sealed burrito from her satchel. Smuggled rations, the kitchen drone warned. Smuggled joy, Era replied, biting in. Her bunk was small, the walls bare except for the pulse of biomonitors and training schedules. She sat on the edge, her breath slowing. The tension of the day evaporated in silence, replaced by a flicker of something else, satisfaction, maybe, or anticipation. She looked out the viewport, eyes tracing the stars that spun like blades beyond the shield barrier. She wasn't here to make friends. She was here to see what the galaxy thought it could teach her, and maybe, just maybe, teach it something in return. Then, softly, almost as an afterthought, she murmured to herself, "Let's break the rules." Behind the observation glass, Tvor watched her with unreadable eyes. "Tomorrow," he said, "we see what she breaks first." The morning began with the clang of metal and the scent of ozone, signals that the Crucible was ready to bleed or be bled. Era Shaw stood barefoot on the cold floor of Arena 4, adjusting the wraps on her wrists. Around her, monitors buzzed with activity, recording vitals, pressure levels, and neural activity from both combatants. This wasn't training. It was data collection disguised as a sparring session. Instructor Vrel slithered down from the observation deck, her scales gleaming under the white light. She circled Era slowly, studying the human like a scientist dissecting a new pathogen. "You've been matched with Grok from the Kavari brood," Vrel said. He has 4 limbs, spiked elbows, and a murder instinct honed over 3,000 confirmed kills. Era cracked her knuckles. "Sounds like a cuddler. He does not spar. He ends. Then I guess I'll have to be unendiable." Vrel's eyes narrowed, the pupils slitting vertically. She slithered back to the edge of the ring, leaving Era to face the massive creature that entered through the reinforced blast doors. Grok towered over her, easily twice her mass, hunched and armored in bone. His 4 arms flexed, claws tapping a rhythm of menace. No words, just a low growl that vibrated through the arena. Era didn't flinch. She bounced on her toes once, then offered a slow nod. "Nice to meet you, too." The fight began without ceremony. Grok lunged with shocking speed. 2 arms aimed at her midsection, while the other 2 went for a fainting slash. Era rolled beneath the swipe, pivoted off one hand, and kicked the creature in the side of the knee, not to injure, but to test. Grok barely noticed. He swung again, faster, stronger. Era ducked, weaved, and countered with a palm strike to the jaw that did more to sting her hand than move him. The arena's sensors recorded stress fractures in the floor where Grok's claws landed. Era was a shadow in motion, conserving energy, striking only when openings emerged, small ones, brief ones, but enough. She wasn't overpowering her opponent. She was outthinking him. High above, General Tvor observed the match with folded arms. She's not relying on strength. "She has none," muttered another instructor. "She doesn't need it," Tvor replied. In the ring, Era caught Grok off balance with a slip and a sharp elbow to the ribcage, then slid between his legs, flipped backward, and tapped him lightly on the back with the flat of her foot. Not a strike. A message. Grok roared. "She's taunting him," Vrel whispered, half in awe. "Human tactic," Tvor said. "Agitate the enemy. Make him lose control." The Kavari beast charged. Era sidestepped at the last second, using his momentum to crash him into a support pillar. Sparks flew. Stone cracked. Still, Grok rose. "All right," Era muttered, catching her breath. "Playtime's over." She removed her jacket, revealing a thin bodysuit beneath. Standard issue, nothing flashy. But her movement shifted. No longer evasive. Now precise. Measured. As Grok attacked again, she closed the gap, dodging low, then using his own arm as a lever to flip herself onto his back. A twist. A chokehold. He thrashed. She tightened. He dropped. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Grok lay groaning, not unconscious, but stunned. The first time in his long career, he had been grounded in a spar. Era dropped beside him, tapped twice on his armored shoulder. Good match. The arena went still. She stood and turned to the observation deck. Next. No one moved. Later, in the mess hall, silence greeted her arrival. Conversations died mid-sentence. Trays clattered a little louder. Cadet stared as she poured herself nutrient paste like it was coffee and whistled an earth tune no one else recognized. Across the room, a young cadet, a brittle-limbed Alari barely out of her shell, approached hesitantly. "You defeated Grok." Era looked up, eyebrows raised. "I outlasted him. Same thing. Not really. One's pride, the other's strategy. The cadet blinked confused. Era chuckled and gestured to the empty seat beside her. You hungry or just studying a legend? Tentative, the cadet sat. Words spread faster than hyperspace comms. Era's fight was downloaded, replayed, analyzed frame by frame. Debates broke out. Was she a fluke or something new? Some believed her success was due to unpredictability. Others feared her understanding of violence was deeper, more instinctual. She doesn't fight like us, Vrel said later, during a closed-door meeting with the instructors. She doesn't fight to win, added another. No, said Dvor. She fights to understand. Later that night, Era stood alone in the practice bay, repeating movements in perfect silence. Her breath matched the rhythm of her strikes. Sharp, patient, relentless. Sweat ran down her brow. Her fists bled. Still she moved. A shadow entered the doorway behind her. You're not afraid of them, Dvor said. I'm not afraid of monsters. I'm afraid of comfort, she answered without turning. He stepped closer. Why did you really come here? Era paused, then looked over her shoulder, eyes catching the faint glint of stars outside the viewport. To see what happens when the galaxy's best stop expecting to win. Dvor said nothing. After a long moment, he turned and left, and Era kept moving, striking into the silence like someone chasing a truth only battle could reveal. The Crucible's temperature dropped 3 degrees overnight, a subtle sign that the station systems were compensating for tension. It wasn't just the cadets who felt it. The instructors moved with sharpened discipline, their usual aloofness replaced by cautious alertness. Something had shifted, and everyone knew the source. Era Shaw stood in the war simulation chamber, silent as the storm about to be summoned. Her body bore fresh bruises, each one earned during a full combat cycle completed without rest. She was the only cadet to have requested it. The chamber walls shimmered, alive with a flicker of reconstructed battlefields, alien jungles, frostbitten ruins, asteroid wreckage. Above her, the control dais buzzed with activity. General Dvor leaned forward, talons resting on the rail. Instructor Vrel loomed nearby, her tail coiled tight in anticipation. 3 simultaneous war fronts, Dvor said. No external support. Unstable terrain. Hostile forces adapting every 90 seconds. She won't survive this. She isn't meant to survive. She's meant to endure. Vrel glanced at him, voice taut. And if she doesn't, then we learn the limits of her kind. Inside the chamber, the simulation initiated. Without warning, the terrain dropped into chaos. Roots burst from underfoot, snapping into motion as a blizzard roared down from the sky. Enemy drones emerged from shadow, spitting plasma rounds. Era was already moving, her mind processing variables faster than any algorithm. She ducked behind a crumbling barrier, counted the pulse between volleys, then vaulted over it and took down 2 drones with scavenged projectiles. She didn't pause. Momentum was survival. The AI adjusted. Enemy formations restructured. Lava fissures tore open the jungle floor. Era adapted. She sprinted through falling debris, slid beneath firewalls, and used collapsing terrain to blindside her attackers. Sweat mingled with ash on her skin. Her breath came sharp and measured. Dvor watched with something dangerously close to fascination. She fights like she's being watched by the universe itself, he murmured. She fights like she doesn't care if she dies, Vrel countered. No, Dvor said. She fights like she expects to. The simulation climaxed. Final phase. Zero visibility storm. Cloaked units. Rotating gravitational polarity. Every second was engineered to disorient. Era's balance faltered. Her lips split open against a steel support. She shook it off, eyes wild, tracking movement by sound alone. She began to smile. And then nothing. Silence. The environment collapsed into static. The system had glitched. Dvor cursed, slamming a fist against the console. Reboot to feed. But when the visual returned, the chamber was empty. Era had found the simulation's blind spot, a flaw in the program's pattern generation. She stood in the core node chamber, where the AI reset its parameters. Alone. Calm. She looked directly into the camera and tapped the glass. "Your ghost units have a timing flaw," she said. "They blink too early when adapting. Might want to patch that." The instructors stared. She'd not only survived, she'd broken the system. Later that evening, word spread faster than any sanction report. Cadets whispered in corridors and coded messages. The Deathworlder hadn't just passed the test. She'd dismantled it. Respect began to replace awe and fear. But admiration doesn't always come without consequence. That night, Era entered her chamber to find her bunk dismantled, her rations shredded, and a warning etched into the wall in claw marks. "Leave before you're erased." She didn't react. She cleaned the mess in silence, rebuilt her bunk, and sat down. But her fingers hovered over the message for a long time. Later, Tvor reviewed the surveillance footage. "3 brood spawn," he said, voice low. "Unprovoked sabotage." Vrel's tail lashed the air. "They fear her." "They should." "She's alone. They could corner her." "She's never truly alone," Tvor replied. "That's what makes her dangerous." Elsewhere, Era stood in the physical training hall, facing the cadets responsible, Grok among them. No security. No referees. "You're upset," she said, voice calm. "That's fair. I broke your pride, your order, your unspoken hierarchy." One of the brood spawn growled. Grok stepped forward, fists clenched. "I'm not here to take your place," Era continued. "I'm here because I've already survived everything you think qualifies you to be feared." She dropped her stance, exposing her chest. "Hit me, if that makes you feel in control again." For a moment, no one moved. Then Grok raised a fist and stopped inches from her face. Era didn't flinch. Grok lowered his hand, turned, walked away. The others followed. From the shadows above, Tvor watched with a grim expression. "She doesn't need to fight to win," he said. "She makes them choose not to." Vrel was silent for a long time. Then she whispered, "She's changing them." Tvor nodded slowly, or revealing what they were too afraid to become. The Crucible would never be the same. The storm above the Crucible was artificial, but it rolled across the reinforced dome like thunder from a dying god. Lightning, arc, and control pulses across the sky, a signal of the Apex trials beginning. Below, the cadets gathered in full regalia, their weapons polished, their armor sealed. Today was not about survival. Today was about dominance. Era Shaw stood in the center of the staging ground, alone. She wore no tribal markings, no faction insignia, just a dark-lined bodysuit she had trained in. The fabric was worn in places, scorched and mended by her own hands. Her presence pulled the attention of every species gathered, not because she demanded it, but because the space around her felt like gravity. Even the silence bent toward her. General Tvor addressed the crowd from the high platform. His voice, transmitted through cranial implants, rumbled across the minds of every cadet. "You have trained under fire, bled under pressure, and stood against fear. Today, you face each other, not to kill, not to conquer, but to prove who commands the right to lead in war." His gaze found Era, and who redefines what leadership means. The arena formed in stages. Platforms extended, walls rose, shifting obstacles emerged like teeth from the ground. It was part maze, part battlefield, a test of strategy and survival. Cadets were grouped into 4 squads, randomized to avoid alliances. No one questioned that this too was designed around Era, forcing her into unknown variables. She was placed with Grok, the Ilari cadet she once mentored, and 2 others she'd never spoken to. Grok towered over the group, his voice low and even. "Orders." Era studied the terrain. "Don't fight for kills. Fight for control. Let them destroy each other. We take ground." No one argued. The trial began. Within seconds, chaos ignited. Plasma bolts lit the air. Sonic mines shook the ground. A squad led by Vrak's commander attempted to box them into a canyon choke, but Era redirected her team through a drainage path she'd spotted in the initial scan. The move bought them 5 minutes of visibility, while the rest scrambled in open conflict. She positioned Grok to cover the upper ledge, the Ilari to scout ahead, and took the rear guard herself. When an ambush came, Sleek, four-limbed ambidextrous fighters. She engaged without hesitation. Her movements were surgical, striking nerve clusters and using environmental leverage to turn attackers into falling hazards. She didn't dominate through power. She rewrote the tempo of the battle. The Crucible's central AI logged every maneuver, not just for record-keeping, but because command staff across the galaxy were watching. She's not following the simulation's predictive branches, Vrel muttered in the command deck. She's creating new ones, Twor said. 3 hours and only 2 squads remained. Era's in the group led by Commander Sonnet, a veteran candidate known for coordinated aggression. They collided in the shattered core of the arena, a maze of pulsing generators and unstable conduits. Sonnet's team came in force, synchronized and merciless. They targeted Era's allies first. The Ilari fell with a stunned burst to the spine. Grok took a plasma strike to the shoulder, but stayed upright. Era moved like static. Every strike a prediction, every dodge a map redrawn. She redirected Sonnet's force into environmental traps, collapsing floor tiles, electromagnetic spikes, unstable footing. But even as she adapted, she knew they wouldn't last. Her team was exhausted. Her body screamed beneath the calm of her expression. Then Sonnet appeared, blade drawn, face blank. He and Era circled each other in a brief, feral silence. "You're not one of us," he said. "No," Era replied. "I'm what comes after." He struck. They clashed in a blur, him with practiced precision, her with fluid intuition. She bled but didn't fall. He faltered but didn't flee. Their fight was more than a test. It was a challenge between systems of thought, order versus adaptability. In the final exchange, Era caught Sonnet's blade in the crook of her arm, twisted, and drove her elbow into his sternum, knocking him flat. She didn't finish him. She stood over him and offered her hand. He took it. The AI signaled the end of the trial. The arena fell silent. Later, in the command chamber, Twor watched the playback again, slowly. "She should have finished him," Vrel said. "No," Twor replied. "She did something worse." Vrel frowned. "What's that?" "She made him see her as an equal." That night, as the cadets returned to their quarters, Era sat beneath the observation dome alone, looking up at the synthetic stars. Grok joined her quietly. "You changed us," he said. She didn't reply immediately, just traced a line in the metal floor with her finger. "I didn't come here to change you," she said at last. "I came to prove that we belong here. All of us, even the ones you never saw coming." He nodded once, then left her to the silence. Above her, the stars shimmered, not just light, but countless distant eyes. And somewhere in the growing archive of Deathworlder anomalies, Era Shaw was no longer just a subject. She was a standard,